What is gender bias?
I don't know.
I actually don't know.
I don't know how to answer that.
Well, now there's this perception of, you know, oh, women are equal, what more could they want? But there's still plenty of areas in which women are discriminated against.
A lot of unintentional bias that ends up affecting how we see gender roles in society.
As teachers, we all have our own implicit bias that we really need to examine and look at, and you know, in terms of treating different students in different ways based on their gender.
It's really striking to see girls be super confident when they're young and in elementary school, and then that starts to dissipate as they get into middle school and high school. And I think that often girls who are assertive and girls who are confident are given negative messages.
I think it plays out for the students too, in the ways that they treat each other and in the ways that they think about their own abilities, or the ways they think about what they might be naturally good at or naturally not good at, based on the perceptions they have of their own gender and kind of the expectations that are placed on their gender roles in society.
Women sort of see themselves as always having to meet someone else's standards, and male students often feel like they can create and set their own standards.
It's a boys-dominated sport in football, and being a girl playing it, you face a lot of kind of the typical kind of sexist jokes and kind of, can she do it because she's a girl?
You know, it was joking with the guys about how I often get fashion projects from the guys where it's like maybe don't go together, whereas sometimes the girls are a little more thoughtful about putting together outfits that look just right or really think it all through. And there are moments like that where I really have to stop and catch myself and think about, oh, what perceptions am I putting out there? What expectations am I placing on kids based on their gender?
There was a presentation that I was doing with two boys, and we were supposed to vote at the end, like whose presentation was best. Everyone was like, oh, his presentation instead of her presentation, even though this kid probably hadn't done as much of the work as I had.
There's still the you throw like a girl expressions. Oh, man up is still a huge thing. Guys have to be guys 100% of the time. They can't take a break. They can't show emotions other than kind of like anger.
There's a perception that the male sports would be more exciting, faster pace, and more entertaining. When I first got here, Middlebury College used to give us passes to go to hockey games for free. I took my wife to a women's hockey game, and I took my pass out to use it, and they're like, oh no, we don't need that. We don't charge for women's games. And you went, and there was nobody there. And there have been times where the women's team at the college, or our girls' team, has been a stronger team, and yet we don't get the turnout that we do with the boys.
Gender bias presents itself when male teachers are telling female students that their skirts are too short, which is subjective, and that they need to change. Because it's distracting the boys, that's valuing a male student's education over the female students.
It kind of everywhere in life, it's kind of ingrained in people. You see it in schools, you see it at home, you see it in the workplace. It's everywhere, even if you don't notice it.
I've had people from me playing football saying, wow, I wish I could play football, whereas there's nothing really telling them that they can't besides the fact that society has told them they can't.
I was a student who loved science, and looking back at my career choice and my career path, I wonder how much of that was influenced by expectations of me as a woman, as a girl, and kind of the assumptions that were placed on me because of my gender. So I think as teachers, when we expect something different from different genders, that really has a profound impact on performance and achievement.
It can end up making people feel self-conscious, have low self-esteem. You know, women who assume that they're not as good as men, who, you know, they can't achieve as many things as men can partially because that's what they've been told, and partially because that's how society has really structured it, that, you know, women really can't achieve as many things as men can.
Women are underrepresented in many aspects of society, in high positions of leadership, whether it's in business or in government.
And so we just don't see ourselves in positions of power. We don't have role models to look up to and to say, well, she did it, how did she do it, I can do it too.
We're raising boys to play video games, be militaristic, be violent, be aggressive, be dominant. We're raising girls to, to take up as little space as possible, to starve themselves into disappearance, to, do all these things that make them real girls and real women. And
there's this idea that, women are supposed to be soft-spoken and smile, and, if they express their opinions too forcefully, that's not okay. And that
boys and men are part of the holistic community, and when anybody's discriminated against or anybody's victimized, then everybody's victimized. They're not, the society or the group is not reaching its full potential.
Affects men who feel like, they can't have emotions, they can't be single dads.
It's a matter of maintaining that discourse and moving from talk to activism.
We have to start caring about ourselves as a community rather than as individuals.
There's just so much just embedded sexism and misogyny in our country and in our culture that it's got to be sort of a constant battle and a constant, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
I think we need to be able to set our eyes on the progress we want to see and then actually be able to measure it and then reflect on whether or not we did what we said we thought we needed to do.
I guess I would say just because it's a complicated and long historical problem doesn't mean we can't come up with attempts to make things better.
In order to have the long-lasting change, you sort of have to work on it from all fronts.
We are all change makers, and we all have that power, and it's whether or not we choose to use it.
To move toward activism, whether it's setting boundaries or making demands or creating media like you all are doing and sharing it out with the community for more discussion and conversation and to inspire others to do the same.
Everyone has a role to play and has power in a democracy. By voting, by running, by participating, by talking, and by listening. I, of course, look to the future of leaders, but that isn't for everyone. People can make a tremendous difference in others' lives by being a mentor or volunteering in their community. There are so many ways to be involved in changing lives for the better.
The best we can do is to be self-reflexive, think about what's going on, and then say, what are some small fixes? What are fixes we can control? Even just talking about it is important, right? Even just saying, hey, you know what, this is kind of messed up when the football players at our school are told to suck it up or man up.
Girls need to be encouraged to use their voice and to not apologize for using their voice. Often women will start by saying, I'm sorry, but I need to say such and such, or I just want to say this, or I'm not only going to take a minute, but I want to say this. And so we're constantly apologizing for using our voice. Girls just should demand respect, and teachers should demand that girls be respected. Boys have to be aware of their own role and how they use their voices and how they use their male power. Sometimes it means that men and boys are going to need to step back and just allow space for the women and girls in their lives.
Education is the main thing, and I think that should start early on by talking about gender identity and what it means, and especially like incorporating it into conversations from a young age is really necessary.
The degree to which teachers engage students in civics, in being involved in their community, and in thinking about history and bias and the need for greater diversity, that's really becomes, the seed for change.
Always have a percentage of your population that doesn't really understand their language and their attitudes and how they're creating gender biases by the way they treat each other and treat others that maybe they don't know. So I think education that we can bring forward for our students and for our faculty to understand how gender biases do exist, and that's the best way to combat.
There is gender bias, and I think it's the responsibility of every teacher to really start looking at our implicit biases. Even someone who considers myself like a feminist and really aware of these issues, I find it happening to me too, where I make these assumptions and I really have to stop and reflect and check myself.
Of course, it happens even from well-intentioned people, where they just are, accidentally sexist. Or there should be anti-bias training for all teachers, but those teachers will be able to translate that into class anti-bias training, right? Maybe even starting a student-teacher coalition against bias, and just talk to each other about it.
We've had people come in to talk about how classroom structures can affect gender biases and kind of how to improve on that, and and it may have alerted some people that it existed when they didn't realize it did.
So to think about, say, at your high school, how are gender roles enforced? How do teachers reward people who engage in traditional gender roles? And how do they subtly, or even not so subtly, punish students who are in some ways not engaged in those roles? And then to actually educate ourselves as teachers, as students, as administrators, to say, well, can we change something?
I think that it's a lot less than it could be, and a lot of that has to do with teachers who recognize it, even if it's not part of the curriculum. I think it's important for all teachers to know about it. If the teachers are just aware of it, then they're going to present themselves differently to the students.
You are our future, so I depend on you. I depend on you thinking differently, on you seeing yourselves as accepting of greater diversity, of leaders of change, and that really is what I hope you can see about yourselves. There is always a better tomorrow.